Years before I was born, at the 1988 Democratic National Convention, my beloved father stood before the country and said, "They see me running for the White House, but they don't see the house I'm running from." When I was 15 years old, he took me to that house. We called it a daddy-daughter road trip through the American South, which in our case included the Honorable Reverend Clay Evans and a small caravan of Rainbow Push staff. Intimate. We drove through Montgomery and Selma, through Georgia, and ended in Greenville, South Carolina, where he was born. He walked me down the streets that raised him, showed me his high school, the neighborhoods that formed him, and then stopped in front of a quaint property on Haney Street. He brought me to the front window of the room where my grandmother gave birth to him and said, "This is where I come from." At 15, I nodded with teenage understanding, but now nearly 12 years later, I recognize that he wasn't simply showing me a house. He was teaching me something about beginnings, that even when they are shadowed, they still hold light, that the distance between where you start and where you stand is sacred ground, and that what you build in that distance becomes your character. He used to say that we may not all be famous, but we can all be great. As a child, I thought that greatness meant scale, crowds, platforms, and name everyone knew. As I grew older, I understood he meant something quieter and far more demanding. Greatness was service. It was consistency. It was feeding people when no one was watching. The headlines captured the rallies and the campaigns, but they did not always capture the hospital rooms, the late-night calls on behalf of someone the world had already forgotten, the stories he carried from strangers along the way. See, Dad's theology was rooted in the belief that every human being carries inherent worth. And he fought for that truth in places that most people never saw, for people whose names never made the news across decades and continents and causes. And it showed up at home the same way it showed up everywhere else. In the car, and we spent so much of our life in cars, he would reach back his hand to find mine while he was on the phone. It didn't matter who was on the other end of the line, presidents, organizers, global leaders. The call would continue, and still his hand would find mine. I understand now that he reached back deliberately every single time, as if to say, while I may be carrying many, I am still holding you. And it wasn't only in the car. It was the classroom visits, the amusement park trips tucked between political storms, the flowers on Valentine's Day, the flowers on my birthday, the flowers when I was sick, just to show his love that showed up every year without fail. My dad loved me out loud. He was relentless about it because it mattered to him. It mattered to him deeply, structurally, the same way that everything mattered to him, that I never once questioned whether I was somebody. Now I understand that those were seeds. You know, my father was always in the business of future-proofing, preparing people and possibilities for a future already on its way. He future-proofed movements, he future-proofed leaders, and in the quietest way, he was future-proofing me, planting steadiness, planting worth, planting faith, preparing ground he might not personally harvest, but believing it would bloom anyway. So today I am not standing here as a historian of his movement. Others will speak to the breadth of what he built far better than I can today. I am standing here as his daughter, the baby of the family, bereft and amazed, and so deeply grateful that enough of his love was poured into me across 26 years that I know I will never run out. Our stories are not parallel. They are intertwined. Dad, the same distance you spoke about between where you start and where you stand shaped you as a leader, and it shaped you as a father. The world watched you bend the moral arc toward justice, and I watched you bend toward me. I am grateful for every mile we tread together, Dad. I love you in every lifetime, and until we meet again, I'll find you in the rainbows. Thank you.